What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with what's next for Alex Pereira after UFC 303 win. Alex Pereira continued to make the case that he's the hottest commodity in all of mixed martial arts on Saturday by starching Jiri Prochazka at UFC 303. The light heavyweight stars agreed to step up on short notice to fill the space that was left by Conor McGregor's withdrawal, and Poirier delivered and then some. Pereira blasted Prochazka in many of the early striking exchanges before he sent the former champ to the deck right before the first round ended. Prochazka seemed to be on fairly steady legs as round 2 began, but Poirier quickly sent him back to the canvas with a devastating head kick. After that, Pereira finished the deal with follow-up strikes. The world appears to be Pereira's oyster following his latest jaw-dropping win. Could Magomed Ankalaev be next? It's certainly possible. Or might we see Poirier try to make history by taking a shot at the heavyweight title and the championship in 3 weight classes? Since interim champ Tom Aspinall is booked to fight Curtis Blaydes at UFC 304 next month, and the undisputed champ Jon Jones is expected to fight Stipe Miocic before the year is out, one would think that the UFC will call on Pereira to defend his crown. But you never know. If anything falls out of place for those fights, don't be surprised if the UFC calls up Pereira. Here's Dana White's thoughts on Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight.
I'm standing up there with the belt and I had Joe Rogan in my ear the whole time we were up there. Let him fight heavyweight, come on, just do it. So, I know that's what people want to see. We'll see how this whole thing plays out.
Conor McGregor goes off on Khabib and Artem Lobov. Conor McGregor won't be making headlines this weekend because of something he did or didn't do at UFC 303, but the massive star's making news on account of some head-turning posts he made about his old rival Khabib Nurmagomedov and his former bestie Artem Lobov. If you're an old-school fan, you know that McGregor and Lobov were close friends and training partners for years. Ultimately, however, their bromance hit the rocks on account of lawsuits that were filed following the sale of McGregor's Proper 12 whiskey and Lobov's claim he was owed money from the deal. Well, fast forward to today, and recently, Russian authorities raided the Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov school in Dagestan, which is named after Khabib's father. According to reports, authorities were investigating Gaethje Murad Kagirov, who allegedly participated in a series of terrorist attacks that were carried out in Dagestan recently. Kagirov reportedly trained at the gym at one juncture. McGregor has since deleted the posts. But as we all know, nothing on the internet is ever truly erased. First, Conor posted this reaction to the news of the raid. Then he proceeded to fire this verbal shot at Lobov while referencing the now infamous incident in 2018 in which Khabib confronted Lobov over comments he had made and then slapped him. That slap led to the even more infamous dolly tossing incident prior to UFC 223, which kicked the rivalry between McGregor and Khabib into a new stratosphere. Yo, Artem, what you make of the news? The lad slapped you like a bald are proper teists. Mad, isn't it? Where are you hiding collecting welfare these days, bro? Bald slaphead rat. Conor didn't let up after that, however, as he continued to trash Lobov before turning his sights back to Khabib. Born in Russia, in Ireland on benefits. You rat. Your country's at war and you're in Ireland hiding, claiming benefits and swearing on your child's life. Your day is coming, mark my words. Let me start by saying that I swear on my child's life I will not take a cent out of the whiskey deal. That is something I enjoy doing, and the thought of knowing that I helped you with something keeps me warm on the coldest of nights. Swearing on your child's life, you sick rack. You don't F all on my deal, you effing clown. Rest in piss. In the T-Gym, when the testers showed up, they would hold him hostage and give a random clean person's urine versus the fighters they were looking to test. All will come out now. When this comes down on top of them, watch what surfaces. There's a video of Khabib walking into, I fought this little made rat with a full broken foot. I should have postponed like I done this time. For what did I give this little cousin effer any advantage for? He issues himself on the bus and showed his true chicken heart. Made spoiled brat. Now you are effed. When you die, I celebrate. Those comments ultimately led to Khabib's longtime manager Ali Abdelaziz responding with this. I guess it's fight week and you're jealous you're not getting attention, and now you have to talk about your master, the one who smashed your face, you and your whole team. And I slept your teammate, and he did nothing. We are superior men, especially Khabib. You are nothing. So yeah, this is just a reminder of why the lead up to UFC 229 was one of the darkest and most troubling in MMA history. It's also a big reason why Khabib versus Conor was one of the biggest fights this planet has ever seen. All this nastiness aside, it remains to be seen if and when McGregor will fight again. As far as the man who was supposed to fight him this weekend, Michael Chandler, he recently told John Morgan he's still hoping to throw hands with the star.
I like to say we're not going to let him off the hook, so we'll see. Talks are happening between me, the UFC, meeting with them tonight actually. I know Conor is going to be ready to come back soon because it's just a pinky toe, so we'll see.
We shall see indeed. Now, let's take a look at what's next for Ian Garry after UFC 303 win. Ian Garry didn't score a dominant victory over Michael Venom Page at UFC 303 like he said he would. Far from it, but he did do enough to defeat the explosive striker. Garry managed to take Page down not long into the fight and had him in all sorts of trouble after taking his back. But Page defended well and worked his way out of several choke attempts. For the remainder of the fight, Page repeatedly demonstrated that he was faster of the two, even though he's pushing 40. But Garry continued to put his clinch and grappling game to work and recorded the unanimous decision win. So what's next for the undefeated welterweight? That's a good question. Although Garry continues to talk a big game, at the end of the day, the 26-year-old is coming off back-to-back victories in which he didn't exactly dominate the opposition. In Garry's last outing back in February, he recorded a split decision win over Jeff Neal. None of this means, of course, that Garry isn't legit, but the Irish fighter didn't score a highlight reel finish that could have catapulted him into a title shot eliminator. Throughout 2024, Garry has been exchanging verbal shots with Colby Covington, but chances are Chaos won't be feeling any additional pressure to fight Garry after his latest performance. Of course, none of this means that Colby won't likely have plenty to say about Garry following UFC 303. Could the UFC look at having Garry fight Jack Della Maddalena next, who's currently ranked number 5 in the UFC's welterweight rankings? Or maybe the UFC will call up perennial contender Gilbert Burns, who would push Garry big time if he's able to take him down. Well, during the post-fight press conference, Ian Garry talks about fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov next.
You've got people like Shavkat. That fight excites me so much. Shavkat's incredibly talented. I have nothing but respect for the guy. I've trained with him. I've shared the ring with him. We've hit each other. We've trained with each other. I've nothing but respect for the dude. It's purely out of, I don't want anyone else to beat him before me. He's 18-0, I'm 15-0. Let's go out there and put on a show and let's see who's really better.
Who do you want to see Garry fight next? Now, let's look at Dustin Poirier talks about Justin Gaethje trilogy. Following Dustin Poirier's loss to Islam Makhachev earlier this month, the legendary lightweight said he's leaning towards retirement, but it sounds like the Diamond could be down for another tilt with Justin Gaethje. Poirier faced Makhachev in the headliner of UFC 302 and was ultimately submitted in round 5 of the thrilling fight. Leading up to the card, Poirier reported the bout could be his last, and he repeated that sentiment after the loss. That said, the former interim champ did stop short of announcing his retirement, and he also acknowledged that the right fight could bring him back to the octagon. Well, more recently, Poirier was a guest on a live audience edition of the Good Guy Bad Guy podcast. When the possibility of a third fight with Justin Gaethje was brought up, the Diamond did seem intrigued.
You know, I don't like to leave things unsettled. We are 1-1 with 1 KO apiece, so the rubber match, I don't know, we gotta see.
It'll be interesting to see if the UFC approaches both men about this fight. There's no question a ton of fans would love to see it, as we're talking about two of the most entertaining fighters in the game, and the rubber match angle makes for a very compelling storyline. Further, Gaethje is also coming off a loss, his jaw-dropping knockout loss to Max Holloway, with 1 second left at UFC 300. So the timing seems right, given that neither man is in the title shot mix right now, and both are in the last stages of their careers. But will it happen? Don't be surprised if it does. It would make for a pretty sweet addition to the UFC's Madison Square Garden show in November. Now, let's take a look at Dana White makes bold claim. Dana White has taken plenty of heat for some of the comments he's made about Power Slap. Now, he's made another claim about his new endeavor, which probably has more than a few combat sports fans scratching their heads. Ever since White launched Power Slap, there's been no shortage of people and even some UFC fighters who've made it clear they're not fans of the slapping spectacle. Further, Power Slap has prompted concerns regarding the long-term health of the competitors. After all, people don't tune into Power Slap to check out the latest in slipping and bobbing techniques. Well, if you follow White regularly, you know he has ferociously defended the league and blasted critics. And he routinely shares figures and metrics to back his narrative that Power Slap is becoming massive. Case in point, following a recent event, White made this claim.
I said it, go back, and some of you were there and heard me in the early days. I said this will be the biggest sport in the world. This will be bigger than the UFC.
Dana.
This will be bigger than the UFC. Now you can remember I said that. Everybody will be like, oh, he's a nut, and you know, all that, and then I'll see you in a few years and we'll talk again.
There you have it. Now, it's true that for years, White predicted that mixed martial arts was going to be massive, and he was right. But do you see millions of people around the world becoming avid fans of power slap? Is there enough variety and strategy in slapping to capture the interest of people for years, or decades for that matter? Guess we'll see. What's next for Diego Lopes after UFC 303 win? Diego Lopes thought he was going to be throwing hands with Brian Ortega until just hours before UFC 303. But instead, he ended up working through a curveball in the form of Dan Ige. Not long into the pay-per-view, it was announced that Ige, not Ortega, was gonna do battle against Lopes in the card's co-main event. T-City was reportedly forced to withdraw on account of illness and having a fever. Ige, who was preparing for a fight with Joe Anderson Brito on July 20th, agreed to face Lopes on just a few hours' notice. The Extreme Couture fighter, as he always does, showcased his well-rounded game and tremendous toughness, but Lopes emerged with a unanimous decision win. So what's next for Lopes? It's kind of hard to say. If he had faced and defeated Ortega, he would be knocking on the door of a title shot. After all, Ortega's ranked number 3 in the UFC's featherweight division, and Ige's ranked number 13. So while Lopes didn't knock off a top 3 ranked fighter, he did extend his winning streak to 4. Maybe the UFC will look at rebooking Ige versus Lopes so both men can prepare for the scrap with a full camp. Or what about a scrap with Arnold Allen? UFC Fight Updates. Now, let's take a look at some of the latest fights that have been booked for the UFC's upcoming schedule. Recently, Team Iridium announced that Matt Schnell and Alessandro Costa will battle in a flyweight contest at UFC Vegas 97 on the September 7th. Marcel Dorff also reported that Edmund Shambazian and Gerald Meerschaert are gonna do battle in an intriguing middleweight fight at UFC Vegas 96 on August 24th. In another middleweight fight that's been added to that card, Bruno Ferreira will throw hands with Roman Kopylov, and that's a matchup that features 2 of the division's rising commodities. The upcoming July 27th UFC 304 card in Manchester has incurred a change, as Christian Leroy Duncan will now battle Gregory Rodriguez instead of Robert Burchak. And AG Fight was the first to report the UFC is hoping to have Benoit Saint-Denis throw down with Renato Moicano at the promotion's September 28th card in Paris. Saint-Denis is looking to get back on track after being taken out by Dustin Poirier in March, while Moicano has won 3 in a row. Given Saint-Denis is from France, that's a matchup that should definitely help drive ticket sales. The MMA community goes off on Dana White for footage. During the UFC 303 post-fight press conference, Dana White defended his Jon Jones #1 pound-for-pound argument against a reporter. Here's what Dana had to say.
I mean, that's why I think this is the problem with the conversation that we're having here and why people aren't giving Jon Jones the respect for pound. This guy destroyed the best heavyweight in the division. Easily made it look like nothing. Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world and the greatest fighter ever. Period. End of story.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but he hasn't fought in a long time. But in Stipe or in a longer time,
He got hurt.
I get it. I'm not criticizing.
He was trying to fight.
I'm just saying, yeah, no.
Yeah, well, it's not like he's just sitting around and doesn't want to fight. The guy came to fight. It's the first injury he's ever had. And listen to me, I'm not defending Jon Jones. You know what I mean? Jon Jones has been one of my biggest headaches in the entire time that I've been in this company, right? And the guy hasn't been the model, fighter in the company. No matter what you think of Jon Jones, he's best ever, and he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. And he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world.
Yeah. Well, except that he hasn't fought in the last year, so he's not.
Because he got hurt. He got injured.
But if you don't...
If you were coming into a fight and you got hurt, that means you're not the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world anymore? How does that even make sense? It doesn't make sense.
When he fights...
Right? If he was sitting out and getting arrested and running around or whatever, and you're like, well, Jon Jones is inactive, I'd say, maybe you're right. But as an educated adult who knows the fight business, you cannot deny that while Jon Jones is active, he is the greatest fighter in the world.
Did I not say that?
Yes. I don't know what you're arguing about here. I don't even know how we're in this conversation.
Here's what the MMA community had to say. Dana White defends Jon Jones far more often than Jon Jones defends his title. This is an incredible run of defenses. Same guy who claimed power slap is bigger than Real Madrid. Dana White is a loose cannon. If you're an educated adult, you'll go home and power slap the ish out of your wife. You cannot deny her that. Dana, you gotta come off this high horse at some point, bro. It's embarrassing. The guy doesn't fight, LMAO. Dana acts so weird on this topic. The reporter wasn't even asking or disputing on Jon being GOAT or pound for pound. Just got agitated over nothing. Dana loves Jon Jones even more than McGregor. I suppose 16 years of working together does make one lose a bit of objectivity. Well, guess who's an uneducated adult who doesn't know the fight business? Jiri Prochazka reveals sad news. After his knockout loss to Alex Pereira at UFC 303, Jiri took to Twitter to post a video talking about his future in the fight business. Here's what Jiri had to say.
Thank you for all your support. Thanks to you, Alex, for a fight. It was better. And only one thing goes on my mind, that I need to evolve to the next level or don't fight again. So it's simple. To be the strongest, this is the way. Thank you. See you in the gym.
Top comments. Izzy sitting behind a camera like, I beat that guy once. Alex saved Dana's with that KO. That was shaping up to be the third worst card on a roll. And people called me a noob for saying Alex is holding the UFC on his back right now. Jamal Hill's manager, trainer, someone, please get him off the internet. Ian Garry did not win that fight. He landed one punch and laid on the man. He sucks.